Hello and welcome to our channel. Lindsay and I are putting together content focused on the fight for culture in politics, media, and storytelling, with a special focus on gender dynamics. On today's show, we have a special guest, Justin Dewayne Parker, who gives us a tour of some of the foundations of feminism and social justice activism, including mystery schools. We also contrast the current culture to traditional Christian value structures and discuss why this can be a taboo subject in some internet red pill men's issues discussions. We spoke for a little over an hour, but we have decided that, due to some audio issues, we would release the video in more easily digestible chunks that will cover the topic in a more spread out configuration. Feel free to join in the discussion and give your thoughts in the comments. Links to Justin's Substack and YouTube channel can be found in the description. Enjoy the video.
I guess what really initially got me started off down that rabbit hole, I started to notice a lot of the social activism that was going on around the year late 2015, early 2016 is when I started to notice that a lot of stuff was going on, and I was um I was a liberal at the time, like not liberal as people think of it today, but I had liberal leanings on pretty much every issue. And things just started getting really weird with my friend circle during that time.
Really?
And when I started trying to ask people questions about what was going on, they were really, I don't know, they wouldn't answer my questions. We'll just put it that way. So I determined to get to the bottom of what was going on and why all these new trends were cropping up. And that's when I just started stumbling upon academic literature, and I started researching things like feminist theory, critical theory, and eventually I fell even further down the rabbit hole and ended up researching the UN's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is a huge issue that doesn't get discussed a whole lot. But yeah, that's pretty much how my journey on that thing began.
Well, that's funny. That brings you right up to the isn't that the whole World Economic Forum thing?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so they're intimately tied in together. Like the World Economic Forum has actually adopted Agenda 2030 and the post 2015 development goals. And it's such a huge thing. I hate that it doesn't get discussed that much because all of the radical changes that we've seen manifest in America and abroad over the past 10 years have come directly as a result of that literature, or of that agenda. Over the past several weeks, I've been doing another deep dive into that literature, and I mean, it's crazy. Like everything that's happened is spelled out in most of that literature, word for word, plain as day, and nobody talks about it.
Yeah, they're like telling you what they're doing, and
Hmm.
yet nobody talks about it. But if you bring it up, they'll call you a conspiracy theorist.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's right there in black and white. Is there any okay, so let's for the people who might not know, what is a sort of like summary of the 2030 agenda?
Well, so it's kind of got a long history. Really knowing the history of it, I guess, is not essential, but it's been a slow evolution. Like in the '80s, they started holding conferences on sustainable development. And eventually, this gave way to Agenda 21, and they had their own set of goals that are very similar to the goals that you see nowadays. But they weren't the approach to implementing those goals was a lot different when Agenda 21 was around. Like it was considered a non-binding agreement, and people did fervently work towards implementing these goals, but not like they do today. And then eventually, Agenda 21 gave way to the Millennium Development Goals. That went on until 2015. Then in September of 2015, a massive conference was held, and this new agenda, it was a revamping of Agenda 21 that was adopted by 193 nations, where they agreed to implement 17 sustainable development goals by the year 2030. And a lot of these are radical. Like the first two is zero poverty, zero hunger. Sounds lofty and benevolent on the surface. I mean, anybody looking at it at its face value would not disagree with it. But you read their literature, and they're actually calling for Western nations to redistribute their wealth and resources to third world countries in order to build those countries up. And they the UN, they want the world's agricultural and mineral resources under their jurisdiction by the year 2030. And they say that that is to basically protect the environment and to make sure that everybody has access to those resources in order to combat hunger. But I mean, if one governing body has sole jurisdiction over the world's agricultural and mineral resources, I mean, you could engineer famines, you could do anything with that kind of power. Vladimir Lenin engineered starvation when he came to power in Russia by having that sort of power. But
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sounds
they
like
want,
globalist communism.
hmm and that well, so they're calling for that. They're calling for what they call solidarity economies, and I'm currently looking into this one. I don't know enough on it to really speak eloquently on it, but what I can tell you is they're calling for a common ownership of land, and they explicitly say that. They're calling for, like,
Wow.
collective ownership of land, and, they want to revamp all of our institutions. Well, so they've taken all of those academic concepts, and they've integrated them into action plans to transform all of our institutions and our culture at large. And like if you go on the UN's website, they don't just implement pieces of it, they implement the whole thing. I mean, if you go to the UN's website, they use words like transphobic, heteronormativity, patriarchy. I mean, like blue-haired language, like that's what they
Mm-hmm.
do. It's the more I research it, the more I realize that everything that's been transpiring in our country has come about as a result of that agenda. I mean, to the point where I would honestly say that agenda has superseded our Constitution, and all the politicians on Capitol Hill are working to fulfill that agenda more than they are anything else.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing. We will have more available for you guys very, very soon.